6 City Council meeting and public forum. And we will begin with the public forum, which is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the City Council on any city-related issues except for those items which have already been heard by a hearings official or are on tonight's agenda as a public hearing. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. When you come to the podium, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward if known. The timer and lights indicate the time you have to speak. The red light indicates the end of 3 minutes. I just want to ask that those of you who can address us in fewer than 3 minutes, we will be very grateful because the council has a very full agenda and is facing a long night. So if you can be brief, that would be helpful to us, but we will give you the 3 minutes if you need the 3 minutes. So with that said, we will begin with Angela Norman, followed by Maria Bybee.
How many people?
Oh, 21.
21?
24.
Hello, it's been a while since I've been here and I see some new faces. So hello, I'm Angela Norman. I'm the market director at the Lane County Farmers Market. And I'm actually here tonight to say thank you for your continued efforts on activating the park blocks downtown. We have been seeing a difference every week at our Tuesday Farmers Market. The addition of the park host, Daniel, is fantastic, and the activities on the west side, we're on the east park block on Tuesdays, has been fantastic. Night and day difference over last year. So thank you for your continued efforts on that. It's working. And then on your action tonight that you took, I just want to say thank you on behalf of the entire membership of the Lane County Farmers Market. It's another step, another positive step on building the downtown core and one step closer for us to reach our dream of a permanent home in the downtown park blocks in the heart of Eugene. So we thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Maria Bybee, followed by Caitlin Bowman.
Hello, my name is Maria Bybee and I live in Ward 1, and I'm here to speak in support of the divestment ordinance submitted to the City Council last month. We hope this is something you've been talking and thinking about. We're trying to achieve 3 things with this ordinance. 1, to divest the City of Eugene from U.S. Bank by not renewing our contract when it expires in October of 2018. 2, to consider reviewing and revising the criteria for choosing vendors. And 3, to create a pathway for future concerned citizens to comment on city procurement. And while it may seem like we have ample time to work on this issue, it will be 2018 before we know it. And we want to make sure there is time for careful consideration of the process and for choosing our next banking partner. Finally, I want to say that although there are many issues on your agenda, divestment is among one of the most important. Compared to other tools to make social and environmental change, divestment is inexpensive, uncomplicated, and extremely effective. We can't wait for Eugene to join the growing movement of cities divesting from banks involved in oil pipelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Caitlin Bowman, followed by Andrew Fisher.
My name is Caitlin Bowman, and I'm a resident of Ward 1. I am also here to ask the Council to divest from U.S. Bank by not renewing the city contract when the current contract ends in October 2018. As you know, U.S. Bank is a financer of the Dakota Access and a number of other oil pipelines, and the city has made a commitment to support the Standing Rock Sioux in their fight against this pipeline. I have been discouraged recently to hear that some feel that the fight over DAPL is over. However, there is still pending litigation, with a judge recently ruling that a more thorough environmental review of the pipeline's impact needs to be done, with a ruling on whether the pipeline should be shut down forthcoming. The Standing Rock Sioux have not given up the fight. Our city should uphold our commitment to support them in whatever way we can. The tribes can tell us when the fight is done, not the energy companies. Also, DAPL is certainly not the last pipeline to be fought. The Keystone Pipeline is back on the table, and there's of course the proposed LNG pipeline here in Oregon. As long as banks can make money from these projects without fear of losing business elsewhere, they will continue to do so. We should do our part to tell U.S. Bank that they cannot make money from oil pipelines and from our city at the same time. We need to find a bank that is committed to a sustainable future and that has respect for the rights of all people. Finally, in listening to a recent presentation by city staff to the Sustainability Commission on the city's procurement process, I was happy to hear that consideration of sustainable business practices is already part of the city's bidding process. However, it was my understanding that companies are asked to self-report on the ways in which they support sustainability, but were not asked to disclose information about how they might be harming sustainability goals. I'm sure even the biggest oil companies in the world have a recycle bin or two, but that doesn't offset all the environmental harm that they do. Further, staff did not know of any way for the public to bring this information themselves to the attention of city staff, as only the result of the contracting process is made public, not the process itself. In thinking about future contracts, this is a fault in the procurement process that should be remedied. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Fisher, followed by Deborah something. McGee, thank you.
I almost said it too.
Did you get McGee out of that? No. Okay, Andrew Fisher?
Maybe she's a doctor.
Not here? Okay. Deborah McGee, you're up. And followed by Patty Hine.
Good evening. My name is Deborah McGee. I've lived 30 years in the county, 29755 Lusk Road. I'm currently watching all the Doug firs in my valley die because of climate change. 99% of the rhinos are gone since 1914. 90% of the big ocean fish are gone since 1950. 50% of the Great Barrier Reef gone since 1985. Ocean plankton declines of 1% per year mean 50% will be gone in 70 years. Ocean acidification doubles by 2050, triples by 2100. 1 million humans net are added to the Earth every 4.5 days. We are currently consuming 1.6 times what the Earth can sustain. We are diminishing Earth's capacity to sustain life. 2014 was the warmest year on record for the globe until 2015, which was warmer. And 2016 will be the new warmest year on record by substantial amounts. The warming is accelerating. The warming has inertia. It takes time to turn around a big ship. Even if we stopped burning fossil fuels today, the warming in the ocean will go on for 50 years. If we do not drastically change course in the next 10 years, we are committing to over 2 degrees Fahrenheit temperature increase. If we fail, scientists say it will be more like 3 to 6 degrees. Catastrophic, irreversible impacts from climate change. The current administration has put the pedal to the metal to fossil fuel extraction. The climate-killing export project, twice denied by the FERC due to Trump, is back and has started its permitting process for a 3rd time. Our governor and none of our federal or state elected officials will oppose this project. They are taking a wait-and-see, politically safe stance. The Jordan Cove Pacific Connector project is 234 miles of pipeline filled with pressurized fracked gas, piped through 400 rivers and streams in southern Oregon to a refinery built in an earthquake and tsunami zone. All this for 150 jobs. This project will enable a foreign corporation to take over 200 Americans' land by eminent domain for private profits. Our Oregon State Legislature will not pass a cap or a tax on carbon. Maybe next year, maybe not. Where's the bold leadership that will save our species? It must come from cities, city councilors, city managers, mayors, with citizens demanding and supporting bold action. If the above reasons don't compel you to move forward, implementing the actions necessary to bring our community into compliance with our own climate recovery ordinance, then I don't know what I can say that would convince you. Please implement the CRO.
Thank you. Patty Hine, followed by Helen Liguri.
Good evening, councilors, Mayor Venus, and city staff. My name is Patty Hine. I live in the county, and I'm proud to call Eugene my hometown. Thank you, Mayor Vinus, for signing on the Paris Climate Alliance. Very proud of that. And thank you, city councilors and staff, for working on implementing the climate recovery ordinance at every level in the operations of our city. But as someone just pointed out, it is time to get serious about becoming carbon free. It is time to start acting like we're in the climate emergency that we are in. The pace and the scale of the effects of climate change, as Bill McKibben puts it, came a hell of a lot faster and pinched a hell of a lot harder than we thought it would. Strong words for Bill McKibben. Simply put, if we do not stop burning fossil fuels, we will continue to destabilize the ecological systems of the natural world on which we depend, and the world we were born into will be no more. The signs of environmental degradation are abundant for those who are paying attention. It is 50 degrees above normal in the North Pole. Fossil fuel companies, many of whom have known about the damage to the atmosphere caused by burning carbon, and the banks that finance them, continue as if short-term profit is the only possible goal. And by continuing to quietly support them, we are complicit. The recent divestment from fossil fuels movement has been successful beyond our wildest dreams, surpassing the South Africa divestment movement. Institutions and individuals across the world have pulled $2.6 trillion from fossil fuel companies. The World Bank ordered its world's financiers at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland to, quote, take drastic action against CO2 polluters. If the World Bank says that drastic action against polluters is needed, and if the city of Eugene has already agreed that we must divest from fossil fuels and invest in clean energy, and we want to do business with those who reflect and have respect for human rights, then it seems pretty consistent to me, and it wouldn't be difficult to use a bank that has a better record on all these counts. Not renewing the bank depository services with U.S. Bank, who provides the city of Eugene and is up for renewal in October 2018, seems like a small step of many that we are already taking and that we should be taking. Let's use a local or regional bank that more closely reflects our values. We have information on that we can share with you. We call on councilors to vote to hold a work session to discuss the ordinance proposing that Eugene divest from U.S. Bank. By voting for a work session, you cast a very public vote for long-term thinking that your constituents, especially the young ones, will thank you for.
Thank you. Helen Liguri, followed by Jerry Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. I live in Ward 4, have since 1992, but the issue I'm bringing forward tonight has to do with a situation in Ward 1. I'm a member of Eugene's First Christian Church, and I'm asking City Council to consider placing a public porta potty in that alley between Oak and Willamette that runs from 11th to 13th. The section immediately behind First Christian Church has become a de facto day use area. Some people, some street people, use our planted area to relieve themselves. They've created a health risk to the many people that come through our church for services and leave us with a very distasteful job, or our janitor, of cleaning up feces and trying to deodorize the area. Besides that, we have a renter, a woman who runs a small Cambodian nonprofit. She rents a room as an office. Her only window is in view of those folks when they're relieving themselves. And she's making noises like she's had it and is thinking of leaving. Her office fee represents 10% of our budget. God's love is without end, but our church coffers have a limit. We're facing an unexpected expense of having to put an iron fence across our front courtyard and the north side of our building. The reason for that is we've had several break-ins in the little tiny houses of people who legally reside on our property and who are illegally camping in the courtyard. We call upon the Eugene Police Department to rouse these people because they can get a bit feisty. We've had a parishioner get a black eye. So want you to consider that as maybe as a quid pro quo for the lessening of police. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Smith, followed by Jim New.
I'm Jerry Smith. I live on Saxon Way in Betty Taylor's district. I wish I was magic. I wish there was some way to wake up Eugene and America to the fact that we have developed a class of people I used to know about in the 1930s and 1940s when I was in school. They're called untouchables. They used to be in Asia. They aren't in Asia anymore. Asia takes care of its people. They're here in Eugene and throughout America. We just want them to go away. We don't take care of them. We don't care where they live. We don't know who they are. We don't know how many they are. We have the most phony data on how many homeless people there are in this community, how many people in poverty. You know, we talk about 1,400 homeless people. In a year's time, there's over 10,000, and most people who run agencies know that. The superintendent of 4J came to the City Club and told us 46% of the children in the 4J schools live in poverty and 10% are homeless. That's unthinkable. God, what are we doing? How do we ever let things get this bad? We operate as if there was 3.8% unemployment. That's such an administrative joke. It's not even a good sick joke. They don't count the unemployed. They count the people who dropped off unemployment insurance, not the people who are unemployed in our district. If you went to the food stamp program and looked at it, and it's hard because they hide their data, it's embarrassing. Over 10,000 people on food stamps in Lane County have zero income, no dollars, no assets, no nothing. And certainly they're going to fall into homelessness sometime during the year. It's just the way it works. Week after week, I meet people whose landlord, because of the housing shortage here, sold the property and the people can't pay the new rent. I have a neighbor in that situation. Anyway, I'd like to say that we need to know how many people are being released from jail and mental hospitals without any income or any place to go. We're letting that. We had a homicidal person at our church breaking our windows, and the police would not take him away.
Thank you. Jim New, followed by Lori Powell.
Mayor and Council, my name is Jim New. I live in Ward 7. I would like to thank the Mayor and Council for committing to the Paris Climate Accord by joining the state's Climate Alliance. Along with the CRO, Eugene is becoming a climate leader, which makes us proud to be a part of this community. Along with these measures to fight climate change, we are requesting the Eugene City Council schedule a work session to discuss the benefits of a proposed divest Eugene from U.S. Bank ordinance with the hope that the city will commit to solving the climate crisis by opposing financial institutions that support the fossil fuel industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori Powell, followed by Brian Weaver.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors, City Manager. My name is Lori Powell. I live in Ward 1. And first of all, I'd like to thank the city planners for their hard work on the proposed Eugene Transportation System Plan that you will vote on tonight. Particularly proud of the focus on multimodal transportation. We do hope that the plan at some point will be amended to include a greenhouse gas emission assessment protocol. This will allow us to determine the extent to which the TSP meets the goals of the Climate Recovery Ordinance. Second, I'd like to respectfully ask that the council call a work session concerning the Divest Eugene Ordinance as has been requested this evening. It was 2 years ago that Pope Francis published his groundbreaking encyclical Laudato Si on care for our common home. And so much of what he laid out in the encyclical is relevant to the Divest Eugene Ordinance and to the environmental justice work proposed by the NAACP presented to you 2 weeks ago by Eric Richardson. So just to quote Pope Francis for a moment. Economic powers continue to justify the current global system, where priority tends to be given to speculation and the pursuit of financial gain, which fail to take the context into account, let alone the effects on human dignity and the natural environment. Here we see how environmental deterioration and human and ethical degradation are closely linked. Particularly profound given what we just heard by the two other speakers, don't you think? So finally, thank you, Mayor Vinnis, and all of you for joining in on the U.S. Climate Alliance. We're so proud of you all. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Brian Weaver, followed by Bernadette Barraza.
Good evening, councilors, Mayor. I'm Brian Weaver, Ward 1. I'd like to make a few comments about the the mayor's proposed performance auditor versus the independent auditor. The best I could think of was like the IRS. Can you imagine if the IRS came along and told all the corporations that if they have an in-house auditor, they are exempt from IRS audit, taxation audits? Do you think that would generate public trust? Probably not. I want to make a few comments about, Mayor, about your guest viewpoint in the Eugene Weekly. Well, first off, I'm sorry. I know you've been out canvassing and knocking on doors, but I'm really disappointed that you missed Gary Blackmer's presentation at the library. It was excellent. He's a professional. You said in the guest viewpoint that the city's already has a strong audit department in the finance division. Do you really mean it's a accounting department? There's a difference between audits and accounting. Okay, I'm sure you have an accounting office, but I don't think there's an audit. I think those are blurring of the words there, quite honestly. You talked about a public process. There's no better public process than a public vote for an independent auditor. And then you mentioned that to hire out, contract auditors to do different audits would be a cost to the city. Obviously, they would. However, an independent auditor, I think Bonnie Bettman McCormick estimated that it would cost a little over 0.1%. That's 0.1% of the city's budget. However, it's proven in other cities, they save their respective city, they save them about 5%, directly or indirectly. So actually, it would pay for itself. You wouldn't have to contract and then get a one audit and then move to the next one. All right, I'll cut it short. But at the end, you said you wanted it to be cost effectively and enjoy the public's trust. An in-house auditing, what you call it a performance audit or whatever you want to call it, it's not going to generate any public trust. It's probably going to make people less trusting of the city. So I urge you to reconsider all these work sessions and all your plans because you're using public resource to stifle a ballot initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Bernadette Barraza, followed by Otis Root.
Good evening. I'm continuing my job of being a voice for the poor speakers, people with poor speaking skills. My name is Bernadette Barraza. I live just south of Eugene. Eugene's my address. I know we have a lot of good people here and you have a hard job and you're doing really good things, as people have pointed out tonight, and I applaud you for that. I think we can probably, all of us, do a little bit better. I put that on myself. I'm here mostly to talk about the socially responsible investing, and you guys have a lot of power in that issue. I'd like to say that Standing Rock lives. It wasn't the exciting in-your-face victory that some of us wanted, but there are cases people have mentioned winding through the courts. People are divesting from big banks. Cities are looking for better places to put our money. I think Standing Rock inspired a lot of that. Follow the money used to mean to me that a crime had been committed and you could find out who committed it by following the money trail. But now I have this other thing that's always going through my mind is where do we invest money? How do we grow what we want by taking our money as the seeds? And, you know, it's not a brand new concept, of course, but one that I think about a lot more than I used to. So when you're weighing the pros and cons of where to invest, I'd like you to take a little more time and someone, I think Patty used the word bold, and I've said before to be brave. The words of Bob Dylan about the times are changing come to mind also, that things used to seem impossible that now don't seem as impossible as they used to. Even something like world peace, when we are in the throes of more war and more scary weapons than have ever been on the planet before, and yet I think, you know, for me, I can say peace is really more possible. There's more of a demand for it. People are a little less weird if they say that they're in favor of it. You know, you used to be some kind of a weirdo if you were anti-war. Today we had a big victory, it was Friday. Ken Ward, one of the valve turners, was given 30 days community service, which in my mind is what he was doing when he turned that valve off. But that's the kind of bravery. I met all those four people, those heroes. My time's up, damn.
Thank you. Thank you.
Be brave.
Otis Root, followed by Joshua Schneider.
Good evening. My name is Otis Root, and I'm a resident of Eugene. I'm a resident of the world. Ding, round two, here we are again. I was here last month speaking on behalf of those who have no voice in this city concerning the use of the city's funds in relationship to divesting from U.S. Bank. And I don't have anything prepared. I didn't have any idea what I was going to say. And the only thing that I can really say is you guys have a difficult job, and I thank you for doing it, you know, for taking that course of action with your lives, you know, to do public service for others, you know. And I applaud you for that. I commend you for that. And I would like you to continue to think of others as you go through this process of deciding whether or not to divest and where you're going to put the city's funds. And yeah, once again, I speak for those who have no voice, you know, the birds outside your window, the butterfly across the grass, you know, and things like that. And as you go forward with this, I want you to remember that you have people behind you that will support you completely and totally in this because it's the right thing to do. And when you order a cup of coffee at a restaurant, you don't pay to have rat poison put in your coffee, do you? I wouldn't do that. And I think that's about the size of it. You know, we're using the city's funds to help a corporation, a bank, or whoever poison this world, our world. You know, this is the only one we have. So I'd like you to think about that as we go forward with this. You have a nice evening, and thank you.
Thank you. Joshua Schneider, followed by Lonnie Douglas.
Good evening. My name is Joshua Schneider. I live in Ward 1. Before starting, I would like to thank Mayor Vinnis for her support of the Paris Climate Agreement. Like many others, I'm here today in solidarity with the divestment campaign locally undertaken by Native American water protectors and the 350 Eugene organization. As is known, U.S. Bank is invested in companies associated with the Dakota Access Pipeline, the Keystone XL Pipeline, and the Enbridge Pipeline. If time allowed, I would speak about all these projects. However, due to the time limit, I plan on only addressing the Dakota Access Pipeline. The pipeline, as many people know, is built under Lake Oahe. A spill could endanger thousands, including the local Sioux tribe, who have lived on the land since long before colonists took it from them. The construction of the pipeline gave no consideration to the local Native American sacred burial lands. And when the tribe rose up in defense of their rights, they were met with what was later revealed to have been military anti-terrorist responses from law enforcement and privately hired security companies. There's much more that can be said about DAPL, but the reality is that anybody with a clear conscience would call the project morally repulsive. Today, I urge the City of Eugene to show that it stands with the Native communities that have lived here since long before colonizers arrived and divest from U.S. Bank. Additionally, I ask the city to always consider social equity and environmental health in their investment decisions, as has been suggested by the divestment campaign. Eugene has always found pride in its progressive ideals. This is an opportunity to show the city's commitment to these goals, and we will help with this as much as we can. Lastly, I would like to urge the city to commit to following the Climate Recovery Ordinance. As has been mentioned by previous people in this session, it is necessary to ensure a livable future for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Lonnie Douglas, followed by Tracy Jocelyn.
Thank you. My name is Lonnie Douglas. I am the chair with the Eugene Springfield Solidarity Network. I wanted to bring this article here that the Register Guard wrote about the improvements to downtown and the park blocks, the dining facility. This article talks about the improvements like the dining facility, the fact that we might be having free movies downtown, Tai Chi classes, things like that. ESSN supports improving our community. We do. But there's also things in here that talk about increasing police patrols and monitoring of the park blocks. And there are concerning comments in this article by community members, not anybody on the city council, but where they talk about people loitering downtown. Well, in a park, what do you do in a park? You loiter, right? I mean, at least that's what I do. I even fallen asleep in a park once or twice all over and such. But you have hostile, rule-breaking loiterers downtown. Now, this is some unknown community members who are saying things like this. What I'd like to address is the issue in Eugene, and not just Eugene, but in Springfield as well, and all of Lane County, where we have this idea that by somehow we can push the homeless away or out, or like a magician with the rabbit in the hat, we can stick the rabbit in the hat and poof, it's gone. But the rabbit's not really gone, right? Because there's not really such a thing as magic, it's a trick. So if we want to deal with our unhoused problem and our homeless problem, we need to deal with our housing problem, and we need to deal with the problem that we really have here of we need more living wage jobs. We need real solutions, and although we support the free movies, and when the unhoused show up for the free movies, we know that they're going to be welcome there like every other citizen, because if they aren't, then the city would probably end up in a huge lawsuit, and we'd lose lots of money that way, and we don't want that. So, but we need to find real solutions. And I am a resident of Springfield. I work for ESSN as the chair. I'm a volunteer. I do 40 plus hours a week as a volunteer since I retired. And we also need to, as a community, we need to be engaging with Springfield, because they are just as bad on the unhoused and the homeless issue. They're just as bad on the housing issue and the job issue. And we also need to be going to the county commissioners, because frankly, they're actually worse than Eugene and worse than Springfield, in my opinion. But so as a community, we need to, anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Tracy Jocelyn, followed by Nathan Adams.
Hello, my name is Tracy Jocelyn. I live in Betty Taylor's ward at 34th and Hilliard in a car camp. It's rather pleasant. We're having an open house Saturday, July either 15th or 16th. I forgot to check which one. I totally support divesting from U.S. Bank and anything we can do to stand in solidarity with the planet and indigenous people, always. I came here with one thing to say, and I know you guys are busy, because I saw the urban growth boundary binder, and it's like that thick. Okay, every person is someone's child, sister, brother, mother, husband, wife, and I would like you to consider that in your public policy decisions in this crazy world we live in. That's really what I came to say. And we were going to try to beat the heat and 42nd and Main Street this weekend, and maybe a 14-year-old boy and his sister, and he was skateboarding, and sure enough, it slipped out and he bonked his head real bad. Well, we went to check on him. 6 other people stopped dead in their tracks in the middle of the day and went and checked on that young man, whose sister ran and got his mother, who came running over, and everything was fine. But instead of somebody getting hit right there, 10 people came to make sure that this youth was okay. And I would argue that that's similar to the catastrophic stories we could tell about the planet right now. Is we're that kid falling on our ground, hitting his head on the ground and hoping he's okay. But we've all known this for years. And I just really implore human kindness in policy decision making. I went to Alton Baker Park and there's no outhouses. That means people are pooping in our rivers. They're pooping in the alley of First Christian. And as human beings, I know there's a hell of a lot going on, but we got to deal with our own home first. And I know budgets were planned last year, but please find some budget money to make a deal with these outhouse places that we have given tons of business, and let's just do it. And I appreciate all of your work, and I appreciate your civic duty. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan Adams, followed by Tommy Pry. Well, you know who it is. Okay, good.
Hello, my name is Nathan Adams. I'm a resident of Eugene, a U of O student. I'm on the board of ESSN. I'm here today to talk about the unhoused issue in downtown. And so I've heard people talk about, the positive changes that are being made to downtown. And as Lonnie said, those are definitely things that I'm in support of, ESSN is in support of. I would like, there to be thriving businesses downtown, of course. But what I'm here to talk about is that, again, as Lonnie touched upon, these initiatives to beautify downtown and to make downtown more attractive to visitors and to tourists do absolutely nothing to solve the unhoused issue and only serve to shuffle around our houseless community and, essentially gentrify downtown. And people have the right to exist in public space. And while, again, I like the idea of having nice, decks and everything downtown to eat at, I cannot with good conscience support that if it means the shuffling away of people who might not have a private space of their own to stay in. And in talking with a number of members of the unhoused community, I realized that our public services are grossly underfunded. That, as was mentioned, the budget seems to already have been decided for this year, but I would definitely request more funding to Whitebird and any other public service that offers material aid in the form of food, shelter, medical care, especially mental health care. I believe that a society can only be judged on how it treats its most marginalized, and by that metric, Eugene is a failure. I don't think that there's any, I definitely think that we need better paying jobs, we need better access to jobs, but I also believe that regardless of someone's higher ability, someone's mental ability, someone's, physical ability, whether they're disabled or not, they have a right to live.
Thank you. Tommy Pry, followed by Alexander Hendricks something. Tommy.
Hi, I'm Tommy Dry. I'm one of the survivors of the Eastern Oregon attack, and Benghazi was Benghazi with the Benghazi trial. Anyway, turn around and since my bones made a minute on Wall Street, started Wall Street way back up when me and Donald Trump was running together, and he turned his name over me, but me and a couple of buddies who was delivering paper back when I was starting Wall Street up in that time. We walked together, and I've done some public interviews over the last few years. I'd walk into the spirit, and I'd like to spend some of my money and get some stuff straightened up because I'm Rolls Royce, and I'm the most finest designer of all time, and make a recovery every time I get smashed. I got soul bones, so I keep coming back. I mean, it's all my money. Fingerprints, DNA. I used to tell them, there's a piece of blood, and they said, what's that for? You cannibal? I said, no, I'm fighting off the Dust Bowl. I said, and remember DNA backwards. If you're too dumb to spell DNA backwards, you can't spell, and there's that. I mean, I keep coming back with soul bones because I'm proper real, and they make me, well, we're going to take chunks out of you. Can you regrow it? Are you that clean? I mean, there ain't no more cleaner than me. I mean, I've been in the FBI for many years, but I've been president time too, and I keep going down, and I'd like to get some of my money and spend it and get things done the right way when, things were done back before the 4 Hill cases that I've been out walking to save and solve, get people some justice here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alexander Hendricks, followed by John Abbey.
Good evening. My name is Alexander Hendricks. I've lived in Eugene since I was a child. I spent some time in Walton too. And I've been homeless since late February. I'd like to thank the city for providing a space where homeless people and travelers from around the country know to come when they're looking for emotional and spiritual support from the community. Not everyone is equally served by organizations such as churches and missions and even in some cases their own families. Downtown Eugene, including the area downtown, including the park walks, notably, is a place where people can come to find people who are supportive of them. And it is the state of our homeless population is valuable on a national level. And I've met people who are very interesting and who've touched me personally. Who should and do have this space to meet. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. John Abbey, followed by Valerie Blood.
Hi, and thank you for having this so you can hear from us. My name is John Abbey. I've lived in Eugene over 10 years. If any of you aren't familiar with it yet, I highly recommend checking out drawdown.org. It's a website that Paul Hawken created with a bunch of scientists where they tried to quantify the impact that each of the things that we kind of know already we could do would have if we pursued it as hard as possible. And so you can see the relative, value of each thing, and it's a long list. The big takeaway I had is anybody who says, just do this and it will address climate is selling us something, because there's no way to get to the numbers we need to unless we do everything. A lot of those things on that list, we pursue them really hard, and it's a lot of things. They list the top 80, but that isn't even all of them. There's more. So, and I don't know about you all, for me, when I talk about climate, it isn't just climate. Climate is just the most obvious consequence of us living out of whack, out of kilter with the rest of the natural world. I spent some time at Standing Rock this last winter, and I feel like that's one reason why prayer is at the center there, because it's not even just about how we treat the rest of the natural world. It's about how we treat ourselves and each other. And I'm not sure we can address any of them without addressing all of them together. So, you've heard from a lot of people here in regard to the climate, in regard to people and the urgency we feel. And I appreciate over time the things I've seen from the city in terms of the climate recovery ordinance and other things that suggest that this city is ready to really act in proportion to the scale of what's in front of us. So when I found out some friends of mine were trying to see if the city would divest from U.S. Bank, and the city's on the record being, in solidarity with Standing Rock and wanting to shift quickly to clean energy, it's pretty puzzling why there's any need for us to organize further at all. It would seem like the moment the idea came up, you'd all be like, well, of course, we're going to do that. What else you got? Because we have a lot of work to do. That long list, there's a lot of things we need to do. It's frankly shocking to hear that you're here to vote on a transportation system plan, and people are still waiting to hear and hoping there might be some measure of greenhouse gas impacts from it. So I hope I'll keep coming to. I would like to see more from City Council to indicate the kind of urgency that it seems the situations we're in need, and I'll try to keep coming back. So thank you.
Thank you. Valerie Blood, followed by Misha Goldberg.
Good evening.
My name is Valerie Blood, and I live in Ward 3. I am a mother of a 16-month-old, and I love living in the city of Eugene. I am here tonight to express concern with the city's special event permitting and the lack of understanding and communication between city leaders and agencies in regards to permitting and special events. This past Saturday, an event was held at Alton Baker Park and went from 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. The event had a permit and had amplified sound from 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. I live 2 miles away from where the event was held, and my walls and windows were literally shaking due to the loud music from this event. When I called the non-emergency line for the police department, they stated there is nothing they can do since the event had a permit and that I could file a complaint with code enforcement. They also stated that they had numerous calls about the event the entire day. I did some of my own research and found out that even if an event has a permit, there is to be no amplified sound after 10 p.m. per the City of Eugene Special Event Planning Guidebook and City Ordinance 4.083. My concern is that there is no process in place for when an event becomes too disruptive to the community and violates the rules and regulations. There are fines and fees that can occur after the event takes place. What good does this do? It does not solve the problem at the time that it is occurring. The city should have a process in place for where a representative of the city or someone from the police department would be allowed to contact the event organizer and have them turn the music down or address what the issue is at the present moment. Permit or no permit. The issues with the event on Saturday could have been handled before the event ever took place by doing sound tests and using a sound meter to determine a safe level of sound for the entire community. Or the city could have a set decibel level in place for special events. Another idea would be for city leaders, agency representatives, community leaders, event organizers to have meetings weekly or bi-weekly or monthly to discuss upcoming events, if this does not already take place. Public safety issues and concerns can be addressed at the meeting, staffing of the event, overtime for agencies such as fire, EMS, and police, troubleshooting what issues may arise at the event, and what actions can be taken. If the city does not have the funds or staffing available, then make it so there can be an on-call number from someone from the police department to be able to contact someone from permitting department 24/7. This individual can then contact the event organizer so the issue can be addressed. If the city is going to allow events, there needs to be a representative that can address issues with the event during the event. Telling the community that there's nothing that can be done since someone has a permit is not a good enough answer or solution to the problem. Communication is key. Events like this should be able to take place without disrupting the entire community. I look forward to seeing what solutions the city can come up with in regards to noise and special events. Thank you.
Thank you. Misha Goldberg, followed by Linda Kelly.
Hi. On a beautiful day like this, it is easy to believe that such days will continue on through the generations, but inside all our minds we have this seed of unease as to whether the earth will hold. We see the deforestation, we feel the heat, the storms. Every year now becomes the hottest on record, but despite all, it is still easy to dream under a tree in the warm light. So it is something of a miracle when a movement arises which awakens us from the slumber of routine, reminding us of the urgency of a greater truth, a greater suffering. Standing Rock was one of these miraculous moments that asked, what is the earth worth? What is the future worth? It was an inspired moment gifted to history, challenging us to live up to the promise of our better nature. So that is why many of us are here, because we are the people who make movements thrive by holding strong to our values, taking responsibility, and holding our representatives accountable to a vision of justice. All these pipeline struggles are won from Standing Rock to Jordan Cove, and so we ask you to join with us in pushing forward this U.S. bank divestment ordinance so that our money does not reside in an institution profiting off the desecration of this planet. 1.5 million of Eugene's money sits in U.S. Bank. 500 million flows through annually. U.S. Bank has given credit and loans to all the major pipeline projects through this country, and we need mass public pressure. Seattle, Standing Rock, San Francisco, New York, Davis, and many other cities and tribes have already divested from unethical banks. Portland has terminated all corporate investments and is exploring a public bank. We must do the work. We must take courage in each other and challenge the institutions that brought us to this moment. So we thank you for your consideration and ask you to please have a work session on this divestment issue so Eugene may continue as a leader in the nation on the most critical issues before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Kelly, followed by Stefan Struck.
My name is Linda Kelly, and I'm in Ward 1, Emily Simple's ward. After all of this amazingly heartfelt testimony tonight, I actually just came with a very pragmatic question. I don't know all the details on the TSP, the transportation plan, but as I go out west and see where the beginning of it is at Walmart and Target, I'm not seeing any structure or any plan for a significant park and ride space there. And I'm not sure whether that's in the plan or just hasn't started to happen yet. But to me, it's crucial if we're going to make that piece of transportation work. And I also suggest that we raise the price of parking downtown for anything over 3 hours significantly. So we really encourage people to use that form of transportation. It's part of what I think we need to do. I also just want to mirror all of the concerns that came forward tonight. I'm very concerned with Jordan Cove. I'm very concerned with us continuing to divest. I think it's one of the strongest things we can do, both on the city level and on a personal level. It doesn't matter who's in power as far as political. This is something we can all do, and I think it's something we need to do to move our planet in the direction that will actually enable it to continue to exist in a livable fashion. So thank you so much for all the work you do.
Thank you. Stefan Struck. And that's the end. He's the final one.
Good day today, everybody. All of our fabulous public servants and citizens united. My name is Stefan Streck, and I live right down by Sundance Natural Foods, a local business I encourage everybody to support. I am here today on behalf of the Make Eugene Great Again Council, and I would like to address first and foremost the dog ban, which I view very poorly. And when I think about this, I don't think about the collective. I think about individual people that I know that are affected by this negatively. I made a lot of friends last year. And I was very lucky to get thousands of votes in the mayor's race. And people tell me all the time, Stefan Streck, you want my vote. You want the popular vote. And I feel that. I really do. Now, my friend Doc, my man, I believe he came down here a couple of weeks back. He's a great guy. He has his little dog named Chica, a little chihuahua that he dresses up and takes pictures with. Now, it's easy enough to say that this man doesn't have a specially trained animal that deserves to be allowed downtown. But really, this man deserves his companion animal. This dog was found by this man because he was driving down the highway and he saw someone throw something out of their car window. So that was this little dog. He stopped, he picked up this little dog, and he's taken care of it ever since. We don't have a proper animal shelter in this city. If people cannot take care of their animals, there's nobody that's going to take care of them for them. Now, it's important for people to be able to admit their mistakes. We all make mistakes. Passing bad legislation is one of them. And this dog ban has got to go because it's making good people suffer. This is a good man. He's a veteran. And he does not deserve the sort of mental anguish that comes from the fear that he's breaking the law. This is a good man that does not want to break the law. And going forward, more than that, we should have a facility in this city that takes care of animals. The county animal shelter is a terrible, terrible place. It's not any place that animals should go. When my friend shot himself, I thought, my God, where's Mr. Fluffykins going to live? So I adopted his cat. And I've taken care of Mr. Fluffykins ever since. And my life is better because of it. But the animals that need a place to stay should have a good place to go. Now, it's wrong that we budgeted $3 million for advising on where to put the new city hall. We don't have a single brick in the ground to show for it. We're still meeting here. People think this is City Hall now. So repeal the dog ban, get the budget in line, and make a place where animals can be taken care of by the city. We've got $330 million. We can take care of the animals that live in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. And that closes the public. Oh, no, we have one more. Sorry. Michael Gannon. There we go.
Thank you. I'm Michael Gannon. I live in Claire Surratt's ward. Thanks for, I forgot to turn in my green form, so thanks for taking that. I just pursued talking to you because I think I could throw some light on some of the difficult issues that you're working on. I wanted to start with U.S. Bank, a place where I've had an account for years, and I'm trying to decide what to do about that. I also tried to borrow money from them for years to enable my business to thrive, and they never could do that. I used to show people the ads in the Wall Street Journal that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, in which they were encouraging small business people to come in and talk to them. It seemed to be one of the many dynamics in our society that don't quite fit together, and you really wonder what's going on there. So I thought I should pursue that. I strongly support the idea of divesting from U.S. Bank, but more than that, I think it's an opportunity for the community to really look at its banking system in the middle of this country. I think it would be useful in view of some of the other things that have been said tonight, were you to look just down the street at Wells Fargo and then imagine yourself on the second or third floor of Wells Fargo, and you're looking out on the park blocks, which the farmers market, which I'm a strong supporter of the farmers market and how it functions, offered a lot of positive feedback for the fact that it's easier for them to do business down there. And behind that is sort of a raging number of incidents with cops and homeless people and poor people and pet owners. And in the meantime, while this scenario has been running down for the last several years, I think if we read the financial sections of most of the major newspapers in the country, we would realize there's a high likelihood that over there, just across the street from all this trouble, from homeless people, poor people, pot smokers, etc., there were very likely some, what should we call them, white-collar criminals operating inside Wells Fargo and causing a whole bunch of disaster.
Thank you.
Did you change it from 3 to 2?
No, those 3 minutes go really fast. I looked over there
and it said I had 1:40 to go.
They go really fast.
All right, well, just quickly,
Come again.
You haven't talked to anybody in the community about criminal action in Wells Fargo, and yet across the street, you're really willing to clamp down on the poor.
Thanks. Thank you for your comments, and thank you all for your comments. And it looks like I have a couple of counselors who want to comment. So I have Councilor Surratt, Councilor Zelenka, anyone down this end? Councilor Taylor. Okay, Councilor Surratt.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks everyone for coming to speak to us. You folks just have such thoughtful things to say. I always find it very educational. I might be stepping on Alan's toes here, as I don't know, but I'm willing to put forward a work session poll to discuss the divestment proposal from U.S. Bank and see, look into that topic. You all have obviously done some due diligence around that and have put some good thinking into that. And I think you've, I've gotten some emails from Jim and other folks, so I think you've shaped enough of an idea there that we can work with that and see where this council would like to go on that question. And then I just wanted to note, personally, I recognize and understand that there's a holistic connection between our climate crisis and challenges we face like homelessness and economic challenges. But I think we need to recognize that city government works in a way that doesn't lend itself to taking that approach as we try to craft policy that works within the confines of what we can do as a legal entity called the City of Eugene. So I think that means as a community, we need to continue to find other venues to do that work beyond city policy while still having you continue to come here and help us as a council to see those connections and continue to ask us to take actions that are within our purview as a city to address those issues. So I just want to say I don't think we are disconnected, but the way our city functions, it can seem like we're not making those connections when I think as human beings we actually are. So thank you.
Councilor Zelenka.
Yeah, thank you all for coming out, especially the folks that talked about divestment. Sustainability Commission, of which I'm the council liaison to it, had a presentation from Becky Wheeler, who's on the staff at the City of Eugene in the Procurement and Contracting Division, about how we do that process. And a couple of points from that presentation that I think are informative here. One is that the city cannot directly invest in U.S. Bank or any other corporate stock. In fact, we're prohibited from doing that. We only can invest our money in the state pool. And the state pool then does the divesting. We have already asked through resolution to have the state pool consider divesting from fossil fuel companies. And we also, as a cited council, have passed a resolution in support of Standing Rock people. State law actually is very important here. It restricts a lot of what we can do in the procurement and contracting business. And several years ago, we looked at this at our process for contracting and procurement, and it added several sustainability provisions, which I wish you would all look into a little bit more, including several provisions on sustainability, including one that actually had points in requests for proposals that rated companies on their sustainability practices. With respect to U.S. Bank, our new rules about that were not in place when we did that contract, apparently, and we cannot break the contract with them. But the new rules would apply when we do that contract renewal process in 2018, which will be before that, because that's when the new one starts. Mr. City Manager, Becky Wheeler didn't know a way for the public to be involved in the procurement process beforehand to influence that process. And maybe you could bring back to us some information about how that's possible for people to get in the beforehand process before we actually let the RFP for those kind of contracts for services.
Yes, we can provide you information around that. Thanks.
All right, Councilor Taylor.
Thank you. I agree that we should have a work session to discuss divestment, what we can do and what we can't do. But obviously there's a lot of interest and it seems like an urgent thing. Another thing which is not that big in a way, but it was big to people when it happened, this noise on Saturday, I've had numerous complaints of people wanting to know who gave permission for the event, which was torture to a lot of people. Actually, I thought people had started the 4th of July already. When I heard loud noises, I kept hearing noises, and finally I went to bed about 10:30, and then I thought I heard an explosion, and it turns out it was all somebody having fun, I guess, at Alton Baker Park. But I hope there's something we can do about that to prevent it in the future. And I appreciate Jerry Smith always caring about homeless people. I do think it's time we have. I was just in Cleveland, and they don't seem to have a problem. I talked to a city councilor who said they have shelters, and the police do not arrest people for loitering on the streets. They help them find their way to a shelter, and I think we could maybe learn something from them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments down the line? All right, Councilor Evans, any comments? I guess not.
No, Mayor, I'm good.
There we go. There we go. There was a little delay. The unmute.
Well, I got to hit unmute myself.
Right.
He's scrambling.
Well, it's always good to think before you speak anyway. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for your comments, and I really appreciate those of you who come and speak with such sincerity and thoughtfulness, and it helps us move forward. So I appreciate your contributions to the community conversation. Now we will move on. The first thing on our agenda is the consent calendar.
I'd like to pull item C.
Okay, and so do people have to agree to that? How does that happen? No. Okay, so we're going to pull item C. Is there any other discussion? Okay, so.
I move to approve items A and B of the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor? Greg? Councilor Evans?
Yes, aye.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did we get all 7? Thank you. Okay, that's done.
Now we go back
all right,
to C.
Now we go back to C.
I sent in a request earlier today that I was going to pull this item because I wanted some more information on it. It's a rather large amount of money, $80 million that UWeb wants for revenue bonds, and we have to approve those bonds, one of the only approval processes the City Council actually has. So I was wondering if there was some staff that could explain that a little further, and I have some follow-up questions.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. I'm Sue Fahey, Chief Financial Officer for eWeb, and with me is Mike McCann, the Electric Operations Manager.
Could you describe the bonds and what their $80 million is going to go towards?
For the most part, it's to do improvements for our Carmen Smith hydroelectric project, and Mike can answer the specifics on what projects are scheduled for that.
Sure. So we're doing two different things. One is the power generation side. So Carmen Smith's our largest utility-owned generating resource. It's built in 1960s, went online in 63, and it needs a bunch of work to basically replace valves, the turbine runner, rewind the generator, that stuff. So that's about half the money we'll be spending. And the other half is for environmental improvements. So a fish trap and haul facility, recreation improvements, fish habitat, gravel and spawning gravel, that sort of stuff.
All related to Carmen Smith?
All related to Carmen Smith, yes, sir.
I was wondering why it was broken up into two different issuances, one now and one in 4 years in 2021.
Good question.
Why didn't you just bundle them into one?
The reason we do that is because we're required to spend most of the funds within 3 years, and so we try to stage them every 3 years.
So why wouldn't you just come back 40 now and 40 later?
Part of the reason is because of the volatility in the financial markets right now, and we expect that that's likely to continue over the next 4 years.
So if you did a larger one today, you get a better rate and it lowers the cost for the ratepayers?
Or because we have, we're going to do two issuances, right? So because we can issue faster when we need that additional $40 million, it provides some flexibility for eWeb to issue when market conditions and our requirements are favorable.
In our AIS, it talks about the defeasance of the 2017 combined with the proposed 2017 issuance reduces the electric utility rate trajectory by about 1%. And you had a graph that showed it was lower, but I didn't understand why the two things were linked together. I mean, if you didn't do the bond, you'd have lower rates too. So.
Sure. The reason we link them together is that we've been doing a debt restructuring for the electric utility for about the past 3 years, and this is part of the strategy, is to do the defeasance of the higher interest bonds that were issued in 2001 and then issue for Carmen Smith funding now.
So part of that defeasance would be the monies, it would defease those bonds and we'd use it with the lower cost new issuance.
Correct.
Which lowers your rates.
Correct.
So being smart financially.
We're trying.
I think that's all the questions that I had. Thank you.
Any other questions for the, okay, so do we now put that back on the table to adopt that?
I move to adopt item C from the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councilor Evans?
Yes.
Great. 7, it passes. Thank you very much for coming. Okay, we are now ready to go into a public hearing on the supplemental budget. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. And this first one is on adopting a supplemental budget. And this public hearing is an opportunity for the council to hear from the public on the second FY17 supplemental budget for the city of Eugene. The supplemental budget recognizes new revenues and authorizes unanticipated changes in legal levels of appropriation for the current fiscal year. Approval is requested tonight in order to allow for necessary legal appropriations.
All right, so we have, let's see, sorry, there's a lot going on up here. Okay. Those wishing to speak during the public hearing must submit a completed request to speak form prior to the beginning of the public hearing. When you come to the podium, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward if known. You will have 3 minutes to comment. There are lights on the timer. The red light indicates the end of 3 minutes. And I have one signed up, John Borofsky.
It wouldn't be budget without.
It wouldn't be budget without
Wouldn't be a
John
budget
Borofsky.
without John.
We would not know what was going on.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thanks for the opportunity to address you on Resolution 5199, adopting a supplemental budget 2. Before I start, congratulations to our new city councilor who's not here or is here. I hope you will let her know about the nut who comes to the supplemental budget public hearings and let her know it's not personal. As you know, supplemental budgets are for the most part house cleaning procedures to allocate for unforeseen expenditures or revenues. That the supplemental before you is no different. However, I think there are some items that deserve to be highlighted. We all remember the ice storm last December. That storm was a challenge for most, if not all, city departments, and was managed in a professional manner. After the cleanup, this supplemental has some things that were reflected. More hard work was done by staff applying for and receiving grants from the Federal Emergency Management Administration in excess of $1.5 million. I'm sure that this was not all of our expenses related to the storm, but in these budgetary times, I think every dollar helps. A quick breakdown of the FEMA monies was the road fund was in excess of $888,000. Parks Department got over $10,000. The airport fund received $61,000. Wastewater over $67,000, and the stormwater fund received over $465,000. So I just wanted to say thank you to the departments for being able to apply for those grants and help offset the funds that the city had to bring forward. And I just wanted you all to be aware of that was being put forth in this supplemental budget. And I implore you to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. So that closes the public hearing.
I move to adopt Resolution 5199, adopting the supplemental budget, making appropriations for the City of Eugene for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2016, and ending June 30th, 2017.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councilor Evans?
Aye.
7. It passes. Okay, thank you. Okay. Do I have to close out of that hearing, then open up the next one, or do I just keep going?
No, you already closed the public hearing.
Already closed the public hearing. Now I got to open the new one. Okay. All right. The next public hearing is now open. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. And this is actually adopting the budget itself and then doing a variety of things as required by law. But the public hearing is an opportunity for the council to hear from the public on the proposed FY18 budget for the city as approved by the Budget Committee. The council is asked to take action tonight on the budget to allow for necessary legal appropriations.
Okay. The public hearing is open. Those wishing to speak during the public hearing must submit a completed request to speak form. When you come to the podium, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward. If known, you will have 3 minutes to comment. There are lights on the timer. The red light indicates the end of 3 minutes. I have 2 speakers. First is Mike Caven.
Mayor, Council, Mike Caven, President Lane Professional Firefighters Association. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the men and women represented by Local 851 regarding ambulance funding. I would again like to thank the Council and Budget Committee for their work on this critical issue. I'd also like to extend my thanks to staff and executives who had to divert time and energy to address this problem. As I understand, you may have a motion before you tonight to add the requested and much needed ALS ambulance to the FY18 budget. I've had numerous conversations and thoughtful discussions with elected officials and community members regarding the status of our ambulance transport system. The responses I get from our community overwhelmingly support investment in ambulances as an essential service. I would like to thank the city manager for recognizing the support for our essential service and coming to the table to collaborate with Local 851 and fire management to provide a solution for funding for a period of time long enough to ensure the best long-term solutions can be evaluated without jeopardizing public safety. With the proposed ALS ambulance enters service in January, we will have completed the single biggest investment and correction in the ambulance system since the cities were left holding the bag when the private provider MSI closed shop overnight in 1981. In 1985, the City of Eugene EMS system received national recognition for quality and innovation. With this investment, we can work to regain our position as a premier, forward-thinking EMS delivery system. In the end, I would like to thank our community for their support, most of all. And I urge passage of the motion.
Thank you. Next up, John Borofsky.
Good evening, John Borofsky, Ward 3. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for the opportunity to address you on the proposed budget before you tonight. I think that you and the citizen members of the Budget Committee did an excellent job of studying and amending the city manager's proposed budget. You had some very tough issues to try to prioritize, and I think that you did an admirable job in coming forward with the recommendations that you are being asked to adopt tonight. So thank you and the Budget Committee for your deliberations. I hope that you approve the proposed budget as amended. In the upcoming year, you will be facing more difficult financial decisions. We know from the work session earlier today that the City Hall project is moving along and will be before you with budgetary needs. You also have other citywide priorities that will also have financial needs: homelessness, parks maintenance, quiet zone, just to name a few. That leads me to a suggestion for you to consider as the year goes on. Last December, at the supplemental budget, there was a discussion about one-time money from the Comcast settlement, and the city manager suggested using a part of that money for the City Hall project, a good use for one-time money. He also said that he anticipated the need for further financing for this project and a way to pay for that financing using the capital transfer. I feel that this is a very appropriate use of that money. However, I would like you to think about using some of the settlement money for the quiet zone. Again, one-time money for one-time expenses. This would increase the amount that is needed to finance the City Hall project, but would alleviate the problem of finding a funding source for the quiet zone, an important part of our economic development strategy. Just something for you to think about as you struggle with the tough decisions you have coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are now ready for a motion. Oh, I got to close the public hearing. Okay. And now we're ready.
I'll have three motions. The amendments will come after the third one, and the two that are after we adopt the budget after the third motion, entertain those other two motions. So the first one is I move to adopt Resolution 5196, electing to receive state revenue sharing funds pursuant to Section 221.770 of the Oregon Revised Statutes.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councillor Evans?
Aye.
7. That passes. Okay.
I move to adopt Resolution 5197, certifying that the City of Eugene provides municipal services required by Oregon Revised Statute 221.760.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councillor Evans?
Aye.
7. That passes. Thank you. Okay.
I move to adopt Resolution 5198, adopting the budget, making appropriations, and determining, levying, and categorizing the annual ad valorem property tax levy for the City of Eugene for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2017 and ending June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Now, you want to go on to the, yes.
I'll make a move. I move to amend the recommended FY18 budget to add one 24/7 ALS ambulance beginning January 2018 by changing the following on Exhibit A to the resolution. In the general fund, increased interfund transfers by $500,000 and reduce the reserve by $500,000. In the ambulance transport fund, increase the fire department operating by $650,000, which takes into account an additional $150,000 of charges for service revenue, and change the total department operating to $9,340,077, and the total ambulance transport fund requirements to $10,323,639. In addition, change the total resolution accordingly.
Second.
Okay. Now, we have some discussion. I have Councillor Clark. Anybody else? Councillor Syrett. Okay. Councillor Clark?
He decided to make that motion formally as council president. I was looking forward to seconding it, but thank you there, Councillor Clark. I appreciate that. You didn't have to take it back. No, that's good. I just wanted to say, as the guy who made the motion and was a little testy, and a little pushy maybe during the budget process, that I think our community needs that extra ALS ambulance. We had an opportunity for an unfortunate way to proceed and bring this to council and everything else. But I just really want to say thank you to the city manager, and thank you to the chief, and thank you to the president of the union for instead putting on everybody had the chance to have a little scrap here, but you guys put all of yourselves aside for the better part of our community and to serve everyone else's needs. And I'm really impressed with that. And I just want to say thank you for serving everyone so well and for coming up with this. And I'm happy to support it.
Councillor Syrett?
Yes, I too want to thank the city manager, the chief, and the leadership at the union for putting your heads together and coming up, I think, with a motion and a way forward that will satisfy the community in terms of having reassurance that we're going to have the ambulance service and finding a way, city manager, to do it within the confines of the budget that I'm assuming you feel comfortable with since you put this forward. So I really do think it's a a really great outcome to, as Councillor Clark said, something that could have been, an ugly collision and would have needed that ALS service right there in the chamber. So I just think this is a great resolution, and I feel very proud about the work that you've all done, and glad that we can be a part of seeing it pass this motion.
Councilor Zelenka.
Yeah, I want to thank the union guys and the president of the union, Mike Craven, and Chief Zaludek, who's here, there he is, in the dark, and the city manager for crafting a compromise that adds ambulance service, stays within the budget, and puts us on a path towards a long-term solution, potentially a fire or ambulance service levy. So I think it puts us in a good position to build some time to think through that very carefully and get the right ambulance services that we need for this community.
Great. Any other comments? Okay, ready to vote on
the amendment?
On the amendment. All in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councilor Evans?
Aye.
7. Okay, good. That's great. All right. We have another amendment. Councilor Taylor.
Thank you. I move to amend the recommended FY18 budget to remove from the budget funds designated for budget transparency by changing the following on Exhibit A to the resolution. The general fund, decrease the central services operating budget by $40,000, increase the reserve for revenue shortfall by $20,000, and increase contingency by $20,000. In addition, change the total central services department operating to $26,173,689. The total department operating to $154,090,652. The total non-departmental to $56,711,188, and change the total resolution accordingly.
Do we have a second? No.
I don't get to speak to if there's no second, right? Okay.
No. Okay. All right. I think no second, so that one's off the table. All right. Okay, now we're back to the original
Amended.
motion as amended. And we've already seconded, right? So
Twice even.
twice we've seconded. Okay, got it. So ready to vote? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councilor Evans?
Aye.
Great, 7, so that passes. Congratulations. That's huge. Okay.
All right, now this motion here. I move that the city manager include as one-time dollars an additional appropriation of $750,000 in the FY19 proposed budget to staff the 24/7 ALS ambulance for FY 2019.
Second.
A discussion? All right. Councilor Evans, discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councilor Evans?
Aye.
7. All right, that passes. Thank you. And then one more by Councilor Taylor.
Thank you. I move to change the designation of $1 million of contest funds for future shelter rather than for future shelter options. Second.
All right.
Now I get to say something, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, I think that what we really need is a shelter, and while this won't build a shelter, it would go toward it. And I think it's much better to do this than to just do something vague. We could keep building camps forever and never get anywhere. And what we really need is a shelter. So I hope that we would make this small amount designated toward building a real shelter. Thank you.
Councilor Clark?
Thank you, Mayor. I would love to hear the city manager describe, as he best understands it, the distinction between the motions language and the original budget committee recommendation language.
What I heard as the intent that Betty has tonight is specifically for what we consider a public shelter, sort of a public Eugene mission, essentially, that kind of a shelter. It could be a one place, or it could be several different places, but it's sort of that shelter. What I took away from the budget committee meeting is that would be one option that gets evaluated, but there are also others that were talked about, whether they're additional OVE kinds of operations, whether they are the Square One Village type of operations, or any other type of shelter that's we've talked about. Tiny houses is sometimes included in that as well. And so I see what the budget committee did was potential for broader options of shelters. What I understand Betty's is specifically towards a public shelter as we think about the Eugene mission, but on a public side.
Thank you, sir. Because our conversation has throughout the entirety of how do we spend this particular these particular monies, been around this distinction between one-time funding for one-time operational capital expenditures as opposed to ongoing funding. I get that the real separation there is about obligating yourself to spending that money year after year after year after year. But at the same time, it's also the difference between buying a thing and buying a service, to some degree, for me. And the way the budget reads currently, it seems more like an ongoing expenditure than a one-time capital expense, and I think Betty's motion gets closer to that. So I'm very tempted to want to support it, but I know we had quite a discussion around this. I think it falls closer to the spirit of what we have always and have discussed so many times on this. But I will wait to hear more from my colleagues.
Okay. Okay, I have Councillor Syrett and then Councillor Zelenka.
Thank you. I'm going to support this motion because I do think we're at a point where we need to broadcast our commitment as a city to creating more shelter beds that meet the HUD standards for housing, which our rest stops and Opportunity Village do not, because they're not, according to HUD, places that are meant for human habitation. So, I mean, I support our rest stop program, but that's a kind of emergency shelter. And I think Councillor Taylor's intention here is to build a shelter with, 4 walls, a ceiling, plumbing, electricity. It might house many people. It might be a number of facilities that house smaller numbers of people. But I do think it's time for us to make that, plant that flag, recognizing that obviously we will do this in partnership with Lane County and other agencies, that it's not just the city that can do this, but we have examples in our community. Our Buckley House Sobering Station is an example of a city-county partnership that has worked very well over the decades that it has existed. So I know we can do it, and I will support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Zelenka.
Yeah, as I've said many times, I don't think there is a silver bullet to homelessness, solving homelessness. We need many options, a lot of arrows in our quiver, so to speak. It's not at all clear to me that that a shelter is the best and only way to get more shelter beds. As opposed to looking at investing in the things that we already know work, as well as a shelter. The motion has us look at a shelter and other options and investing that money over 2 years. I don't know, but for sure, but my understanding is that shelters, centralized shelters like that from scratch, are very expensive, not only to build. That's probably not the biggest hurdle. It's actually what I worry about is sustaining it over time. They tend to be very expensive to operate and sustain over time, and I worry about how we would do that. And just going down the road of investing in a shelter at the exclusion of everything else that we know already works, I think would be a bad path to go down.
Councillor Semple.
Thank you, Mayor. When I had written a motion I had left it more vague. I wanted to make sure that we made it a statement that we were going to do something substantial. I've gotten a lot of feedback of, thanks for just putting out some mushy money, is this going to really do anything? So $1 million is not going to build a shelter. It's not going to do a lot of things. And we do have a time limit on it. So I think it is time to make a stand towards a permanent shelter. And if through our investigation we decide that that's not the right thing to do, we're not obligated to spend the whole $1 million, which would then make it available for some of our other project ideas that have worked. So I feel that supporting this does not preclude having other options as well. Maybe we'll get some more money and we can do more things. But I think we do need to make the statement that we realize it's a crisis. And I think it's important that at least part of this shelter, if we build one, has wet beds, because that's what people are seeing as the edge of homelessness that's so distressing. So I'm going to support this. Thank you.
Council Pryor.
Back last fall, when I said I was planning to come to the Budget Committee with this kind of a request, and I'm glad other councilors also had a similar idea, what I had in mind was a shelter, a physical shelter. And if the city was willing to put up money to help get that created, the thing, that it would require partnership in order to operate the service. And even Councilor Evans recognized that as well. This only gets the thing built, it doesn't provide the service. And so just as Councilor Semple said, if we're willing to demonstrate the commitment to put up the money to build the place, and I'm not imagining a big one, my experience is you don't want to build a giant shelter. You want to build something fairly small, and if you need to build more than one, that's the smart way to go. So $1 million could build a modest shelter, but it still leaves the challenge of how to operate it. And so, just as Councilor Semple said, if we commit the money to get the place built, it would have to be contingent on the partners coming forward to operate it. And if they were not willing to come forward to operate it, then we don't have to spend that $1 million. So it is very much contingent on making this whole combination of circumstances work. And that was always my intention from the first. I did not want the city of Eugene to see itself as the only body, government body locally, responsible for providing shelters. It is something that should be done mutually, cooperatively, and intergovernmentally. And for that reason, I will support the motion. I think we should have a shelter, a cooperatively operated shelter, and I think this is the first step toward getting there.
Councilor Evans, do you want to speak to this?
I have a question for staff. Given the limitations of the amount that we're designating in this particular motion, the $1 million, what realistically could we get out of this, even in collaboration with our partners at the county? Because just sitting on the Human Services Commission, I know how their budgets are currently constrained and probably will be constrained in the near future, given the federal budget proposals that are coming out of the White House.
I don't know a specific number that the county would be able to partner, or any other partner for that matter. There could be others that come to the table. I think and maybe it was Emily that mentioned it, that part of, I think the original intent is to signal significant intent on the city's part to continue to invest in homelessness, and how do we overcome that or continue to work through that, whether it's a single shelter or a broader base. And so I think the $1 million will not buy or build a shelter. So other partners would have to come to the table, but I think the intent is to show significant investment to try to bring others to the table. What I recall is the motion actually is for us to put together a plan on how we go about spending $1 million on something. And if $1 million, we would have to look for partners if we wanted to do anything of significance beyond, some of the things that have been successful. But if we wanted to do a shelter, we definitely would need additional partners.
The only thing that's giving me pause on this is the fact that we would be constrained to be focused on one style of facility. And I would rather have the flexibility to be able to invest in other kinds of facilities if this one proves not to be a, feasible strategy.
I also would like to just speak to this a little bit, and I resonate with everything that everyone has said in that I really am grateful to the council's commitment to doing something very substantial for the homeless. I would like to see some flexibility, and as I have talked to I have a meeting this week with stakeholders in finding solutions. We're working with the Poverty and Homelessness Board, and what I have said to that group is that I'm not walking into this conversation with any preconceived notions about what we are about to do and how it's going to look, that I want that to emerge. So if the council wants to make a commitment that this is designated for a shelter, that's fine, with the expectation that the manager will ultimately come back with a proposal, and it might not look exactly the way you're thinking right now, because I think that what we're going to do is going to evolve as part of that conversation. So I don't know that, I guess I personally don't necessarily see that we're going to build another mission, but maybe we will. Okay, I have Councilor Taylor and Councilor Zelenka.
Thank you. This does not, if we designate money for a shelter, obviously we won't be building it immediately. It does not stop us from doing other things also. But I do think that we need to start toward having a real homeless shelter, at least one. And we could still do all the other things if we have the money for them. But this is saying $1 million only will go toward, right now, we would need, there'd be a lot more that we would need partners and lots of other things. But this is a significant commitment. Thank you.
Councilor Zelenka.
Yeah, well, Betty, I thought you said exactly what I was going to say, which is if we have the money for it. There is zero money allocated for those other things. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. City Manager. 5,000. Except for a couple of smaller items. There's no significant amount of money to investigate anything else if this passes than a shelter, which means we will study it, investigate it, put together a plan over the long term, may result in a shelter, but in the short term, in that 2-year period, we'll likely end up with a lot of good information and discussions with partners, but we'll have 0 shelter beds additional, because it does preclude us from investing in the short-term shelter beds. That's why the original motion was to do shelter options, including a shelter, including other things from those successful pilots that we've done that will actually, we know will get us some more beds, shelter beds. And so I'd encourage us to add some flexibility into this, because I think we need to do both, which is what the original motion was.
Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to say, I sometimes get, and I participate and lead many of these kind of conversations sometimes, but the either or kind of false choice kind of questions sometimes. I don't believe we're constrained to help in any way we see fit in the future. This is just a particular description of how to spend this money, and I like the idea that we're stepping up to say, we're serious. We're gonna be a part of a larger long-term solution. But no, it doesn't preclude us from doing anything additionally in the course of the year that, in a supplemental fashion, that we see as a good idea to do. So I don't feel constrained in any way to step up now and say this is a serious commitment. So I'm going to be supportive of this.
Any other comments? Okay, all in favor of the?
I have one question.
We have one. Okay, go for it.
This eliminates the 2-year deadline.
There's no time in this.
Right. I just wanted to put that in our heads, that it does not have an end date.
No.
Yes.
So the way
It's a
the
one-year
motion is crafted is to simply amend the motion that the Budget Committee passed. And the motion that the Budget Committee passed actually says allocate $1 million of the Comcast settlement funds. Now it would say for a future shelter, and request that the city manager develop a plan for city council approval for spending these funds within the next 2 years in conjunction with interjurisdictional partners. All you're doing with the way the motion was crafted, and this may have been my misunderstanding of what Councilor Taylor intended, all you're doing is changing the language in the Budget Committee motion where it says for future shelter options to for a future shelter. So if your intention is to remove the 2 years or to change any other part of that motion, you still need to do that. Because the motion that's on the table is only to change the words for future shelter options to a future shelter.
That's fine.
Okay, how can we do that?
Do we need to do that?
Yes.
So I'd need to understand which part of the Budget Committee motion you want to change. Is it just the 2 years?
I don't think we need to say 2 years at all.
So if what you want to do then is to remove
Just to designate the $1 million for a shelter, period.
and not have anything in the motion about requesting the manager to develop
We can do that later.
So then the motion that you would actually want to have on the table is move to amend the Budget Committee's motion so that we are allocating $1 million of one-time Comcast settlement funds for a future shelter period.
Yes.
So if you want to do that, if you have the permission of the person who seconded it, then you could do that as a friendly amendment.
Okay.
So that's then the motion that's on the table, but you may have counselors who now will want to speak differently to that.
Yes, I have Councilor Syrett stepping up.
Yeah, so I would ask the maker of the motion to put back the language about the city manager looking at options and coming back to the council. I recognize we can direct him to do that later, but I think keeping that piece in the motion is crucial to my support. I'm all right with eliminating the 2-year time frame.
What about me too?
Any other councilors?
So
Yeah.
you want to eliminate the
2 years.
Just the 2 years. Just 2
Manager
years.
still comes back with options.
Okay, that's all right with me.
I'm okay with that.
Okay with you?
Okay.
Leaves in the interjurisdictional partners.
Right.
So if I can read to you what I believe Councilor Taylor is now saying is her motion, it would be to change what the Budget Committee did to now say, allocate $1 million of one-time Comcast settlement funds for a future shelter and request that the city manager develop a plan for city council approval in conjunction with interjurisdictional partners.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay. All right. So ready to vote? All in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5. Councilor Evans?
Yes.
6 opposed, 1. It passes 6-1. Okay. Okay. I think we're done. Are we actually done?
ESP.
We're done with.
Renewal.
No,
still have to.
done with the budget.
We're done with the budget. So I've just gavelled out of that meeting, and now I'm gavelled into the Urban Renewal Agency. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. This resolution is really about adopting the Urban Renewal Agency budget, and the public hearing is an opportunity for the agency board to hear from the public on the FY18 proposed budget for the Urban Renewal Agency as approved by the Budget Committee. The agency is asked to take action tonight on the budget to allow for necessary legal appropriations.
Okay. So this is a public hearing. Those wishing to speak during the public hearing must submit a completed form, and we don't have anybody who submitted anything. So I think we can close that public hearing. And Council President?
I move to adopt Resolution 1082 of the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Eugene adopting the budget, making appropriations, and declaring the amount of tax to be certified for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2017 and ending June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councilor Evans?
Aye.
7 passes. Okay. Okay, that's, I guess, did I already gavel out? That ends the Urban Renewal Agency meeting.
I gotta go back into.
And now we'll go back into a council meeting. Okay.
Working that gavel.
Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. And this is action on a resolution concerning Measure 49 claim for which you've had previous work. And Chad and Katie Wilson have filed a Measure 49 claim with the city for their property located at 1777 East 30th Avenue. The Wilsons are requesting compensation or waiver of a city land use regulation that restricts the height of a secondary dwelling unit on their property. Before the council tonight is a resolution denying the Wilsons' Measure 49 claim.
Okay.
I move to adopt Resolution 5202, a resolution denying a Measure 49 claim for property located at 1777 East 30th Avenue, Eugene, Oregon.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councilor Evans?
Aye.
7. Okay, that passes. Thank you. All right, now, the final item.
Almost this final item.
Second, the final, oh my gosh, right.
Penultimate.
The penultimate item. Okay.
And this is action and asking your approval of ordinance that concerning long-range transportation planning. And tonight you will be taking action or have the opportunity to take action on ordinance that adopts the Eugene 2035 Transportation System Plan, makes corresponding amendments to the Eugene Springfield Area Metro Area General Plan and the Eugene Springfield Transportation Plan, makes concurrent amendments to the Eugene Code and Eugene's street classification map, makes an amendment to ordinance number 20528 and repeals the Eugene's Central Area Transportation Study. Included in your packet is the adopting ordinance, the 4 exhibits that will be adopted as part of the ordinance, which includes the findings, volumes 1 and 2 of the TSP map, EC 9.8010, and the street classification map. And the Eugene 2035 TSP provides a 20-year blueprint for the City of Eugene's transportation system and will ultimately serve as the transportation element of the Envision Eugene Comprehensive Plan. The 2035 TSP was developed based on extensive stakeholder input, analysis of our existing transportation system, and close coordination with the Envision Eugene planning process.
And Mayor, if I may, so what's in your AIS is the ordinance itself. It's not this notebook, which was distributed to you earlier and has been available in the city manager's office, but it's the ordinance plus the notebook that you would be acting on tonight.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Okay.
Or a file on a computer.
Okay, Council President.
I move to adopt Council Bill 5172, an ordinance concerning long-range transportation planning.
Second.
And then I have a
Okay,
motion.
and then, yes, you're going to have it amend, okay.
Yeah.
So it's seconded, and you have a,
Right. I move
And
to
I'm getting
amend,
you-
this is at your table. I move to amend Council Bill 5172 to add new Section 17 that states, Section 17, Implementation Plans. By June 30th, 2018, the city manager shall bring to the City Council for a vote an amendment to the 2035 TSP that creates a TSP implementation plan that will achieve the Climate Recovery Ordinance and Vision Zero adopted goals. The TSP implementation plan shall include 1, the TSP-related specific prioritized actions, programs, and projects and performance measure benchmarks needed to achieve Council's adopted climate recovery and Vision Zero goals. 2, specify their cost benefits and co-benefits and funding sources. And 3, the schedule for implementation. The city manager shall update the city council quarterly on the progress made towards creating the TSP implementation plan.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, discussion? Yes, please.
Yeah, this is I didn't want to hold up the TSP, but I did want to add in these two things, the Vision Zero and the Climate Recovery Ordinance, to get us moving along the road of getting those integrated with specific actions in a prioritized, least cost kind of plan way, so that it moves forward and within a specific time frame, and that's about a year. If we need to amend that as we go along and find out that that's insufficient amount of time, we can do that at a later date and cross that bridge as we come to it. But I think these are two important parts that need to be specifically added into the TSP. And we don't have this information right now, so we can't do it now. We'd have to hold up the TSP for a long time before we would adopt it. So I would think that as we went along, Mr. City Manager, it says quarterly reports, but and that's part of the requirement of the motion. But I would, in the short term, a schedule about how this would work out and what you think the time frame would be a good idea as well.
Yeah, and what I was going to say after both motions are acted upon, we'd be happy to do that, and that could be similar for the second motion. If it passes, what we might find in doing that is we may need some additional staff. They're both pretty tight timelines with pretty significant work in both cases. And so if we do also need additional staffing to do that, we would also include at that time with options on how to move forward with that as well. So I just want to foreshadow that. I don't know that to be true, but I just, if it is the case, then we'd want to bring that too.
Right, I don't either, and I suspect that it's probably true, which is why I asked for it.
Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and Manager was referencing mine. I think I wanted also to bring something that brought us an amendment rather than having all of that language done now, give staff appropriate time to develop an amendment to the TSP that addresses the issue on the motion I'll make a little later. But from what I understand from the city attorney, I'll be making my motion after we dispose of the TSP as a direction to the manager rather than codified inside the ordinance. My understanding of the difference is perhaps the city attorney could better speak to that, or is that there's an issue around compliance that's important here and flexibility that's important here. The reason I'm asking, I want to know two things. Number one, is there a reason that we should consider Alan's motion in a different form if it's an undue burden? Or is there a reason that my motion should also be inside the ordinance and there's a drawback if it's not? So
there is a significant difference between having this direction in the ordinance versus having the direction as a motion from council. And that difference is, if you put it in the ordinance, it is legally binding, and it means it will take priority over anything else that staff has to do. And in order to change, you can certainly change the timeline and you can change the direction, but because it's an ordinance, the only way you can change that is with another ordinance. So if, for example, the manager comes to you in 60 days or 90 days and says, we've scoped it out, and here's what the cost is going to be, and here's the projects that we're not going to be able to do because we have to focus on this because this is legally binding, whereas other work plans are not. The only way you would be able to change this direction if it's in the ordinance is with another ordinance. You have two alternatives. One is it wouldn't be in the ordinance, or a different alternative is that you could add language to the beginning of this direction that would say, unless otherwise directed by the city council, What that language would allow you to do is by motion say, oh, now that we understand what the scope is of the work or what the cost is or what the proposed timelines are, by motion you could then say, we are now directing you, city manager, that instead of June 30th, 2018, you have until some other time. The way this particular motion is crafted, what the manager is required to bring to you by June 30th of 2018 is an amendment to the TSP that is ready for your adoption. In order for it to be ready for your adoption, it first has to go through the Planning Commission with the public hearing and recommendation, and then a public hearing before you. So it's a very, very tight timeline when you consider all those steps and how long it's taken the TSP to get to you. Your motion, Councillor Clark, by being not part of the ordinance, means you're giving the manager direction in a particular time frame, but if it turns out that he can't meet that or staff can't meet that, he can give the council an update, and by motion you can direct him to extend that timeline or otherwise change the direction. So there's a very significant difference between having it in the ordinance or having it outside, unless of course you add that language that I mentioned.
Right. So if the manager tells me there's an undue burden here, I would have concerns. Otherwise, I'm happy to support Councillor Zelenka's motion unless there is an undue burden. I did hear you say though that there will be perhaps a need for additional staff in order to accomplish that goal. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think what both of these are, I do think they're significant amounts of work, and so it is possible that we would want to have additional staff.
I was just speaking of his right there because the legal requirement. I'm going to make mine outside of the code, but I'm going to be really cranky if you come back and put it off. So, just saying. Thank you.
Alan, did anyone else want to speak to this? Emily, okay.
I think that we really need an implementation plan. I didn't vote for the CIP not because I thought it was bad, but because I thought it didn't address enough of the climate recovery ordinance. And we've certainly heard from a substantial number of people who agree with that. I'm not quite sure I understand what the implementation plan would mean, and maybe someone else could speak to that. How would we decide? Are we looking at the whole big book of which things should we do first for the climate recovery ordinance, or are we picking out part of it and working on that first? Anybody have any idea of how we're actually going to do an implementation plan?
I could speak to that if you want. An implementation plan, basically, to do that, which is what the city manager is talking about, the extra work, is you need to analyze each of the projects within the TSP to figure out what their costs are and their benefits and their co-benefits are, as well as their greenhouse gas reduction emissions reductions, as well as their Vision Zero impacts, and then craft a plan that actually uses those numbers to then achieve the CRO goals. And so it would could potentially reprioritize well, there isn't a priority plan, so it would create a prioritized plan to meet those two goals. And the reason I chose to put it in the ordinance as opposed to just directing the city manager is for the same reasons we did that with the climate recovery ordinance. It's stronger. It takes public notice to get out of it. It directs the city manager to do it and prioritizes it as a very important thing. So that's why it's in the ordinance as opposed to just a motion to direct the city manager, which is the same reason we did it in the climate recovery ordinance. That's an ordinance as well. So with respect to the time frame, the reason I asked the question at the beginning was that I know this is a tough time frame, and I would like us to try to meet that time frame. It's potentially doable if we hire a consultant that's done this before, and there are consultants that do that. And and we could work our way through that. But if it turns out that it's not, then we can come back and add more time to that if it turns out that schedule is unrealistic. And so that's why I asked the city manager to come back with in the short term, a time frame about how to get this done, to see if that June 30th, 2018 is doable. If not, we can change it.
So you're saying by June we would have gone through the whole book and organized it in order with all of those parameters defined and
to meet the 2030 and the 2035 Vision Zero goals. Yeah, Vision Zero goals. We don't exactly have Vision Zero goals. There's still a work group working on that right now, and I think by the end of this year they're supposed to have those in place.
Can I ask Kurt a question? How much of the work that this involves, the greenhouse gas emissions, and I'm forgetting right now all the other things that we need to do the implementation plan, how much has already been done, and how much work are we actually looking at to within a year have gone back through the whole book? Have we already done a lot of this? If it's a really huge project, do we need a budget motion?
I think I'll just suffice to say that given the uncertainty of the outcomes that we're after here, that I think we're going to have to do some scoping on, sit down with Councilor Zelenka and see what outcomes we have in mind, because it could be a fairly broad scope. It will take resources that we don't have now for sure.
So I'm a little confused as to, what we're really asking for here. I do think we need to look at our projects and figure out which ones are the most important for our CRO and do them first. But I think we could pull those out without going through the whole book right away and sort of work on it as they come up. We need an implementation plan. I'd like to hear how it's going sooner. But I realize it may not be finished for quite a while. I'm also wondering if there's something we can do to pick up the cream of it and work on that faster than wait for this whole plan to be done.
Yeah, I think that's typically how those things get done. You do a short-term plan and a long-term plan. The short-term plan gets you moving along the way, and then the long-term plan analyzes the rest of the stuff, because it is a 2030 goal. So that's
right.
13 years out. So you want to be able to, in the short term, create actions that get us along the way and then figure out the rest as we go. For both climate recovery and Vision Zero, because I don't think either of them are very easy to do. But you do want to have exactly what you said, Emily.
I'm sure I have more, but I'm not thinking about it. It's like it's just sort of confusing as to, it's a huge thing to go from here's all the things we think we need to do in the next 20 years to go, and this one does this much greenhouse gas, and this one uses that much concrete, and this one will get this many rides out of cars, and just, the buses are really important. There's just so much in it, and it feels like this might be such a huge bite that we don't actually get to eat.
Councilor Taylor?
I will support the motion, and it will make it more feasible seem better to me to support the whole thing if we have this as a part of it. I think there may be concrete that we don't need, and this might reveal that.
Thank you. Councilor Surratt?
Yeah, just to try to help Councilor Semple feel better about this motion. Councilor Zelenka tried to answer that, but I think putting this in the ordinance, as the city attorney said, gives it the force of law. The city manager and our staff, I have found, look for what are the things we could do first that really move us down that road. So it may not be they scope out every single project and then figure out what to do first. I think there's probably some identifiable things that they could bring forward as the timeline rolls out. And then if there's budget implications, that would be part of that initial scoping for the city manager to come and say, well, you've asked us to do this work, but in order to really do what you want, we need to, amend the budget or find resources of the following nature. So I think what you're asking for would be part of what the city manager and his staff would need to be doing for us.
Councilor Zelenka, you want to address this?
One more point on that. There are tools and things that have already been built to help us do this. We don't currently use them. For instance, but for MPC at the regional level, we were required to create a scenario planning, which got us to reduction of a certain amount of greenhouse gases over a period of time, and pick the scenario with these multiple different kinds of things, actions in it that got us to the goal, and we were able to quantify that and get us along that way. A product that was developed by ODOT called Green Steps allows us to quantify exactly how many do you get if you pick this option A, how much do you get if you do B, and then also Metro was required to do the same scenario planning and to implement it. So their tools are even more sophisticated. And after talking to some of those folks, they're much willing to share that kind of information and adapt them towards what we can do here. There are, of course, different inputs and outputs that occur for Portland, but it also, the tools exist. We just have to employ them.
How much would this slow us down? If we, from actually getting something done, would it have an impact of how quickly we could get a protected bike path built? Could we start building protected bike paths while we're looking at all these other things?
You weigh in first and.
Yeah, sure. When we had our last work session on this topic, we spent a considerable amount of time talking about how the Climate Recovery Ordinance is integrated into the TSP as it currently exists. So this is not a new initiative. I think what's what's unclear to me is how we go about scoping a project for a TSP, which is a planning document. Neither designed nor intended to be a standalone means of achieving the CRO goals. And that's almost the task that we have at hand. If it's a matter of moving along the projects in the TSP and keeping in mind all the things that we talked about at the work session in terms of making additional options available and more attractive and all of those types of things, that will be part and parcel of what we do upon adoption of the plan. I guess I'm just saying it's less certain to me what the level of effort and what the implications are of what I see as the unknowns in the motion.
Councillor Clark?
Yeah, I because some of the stuff is awfully complex, the way I read and see this, the planning pieces for individual transportation projects and facilities remain as a planning document. But what I hear and see from this is, along with that process of moving those projects through as they come to council in individual format, be it budgetarily or what have you, we're also going to have with that, as a newer item, some larger degree of information about what the impacts are with regard to the things we list out as important in the CRO. So we're going to be able to say it's going to cost X number of dollars, but it's also going to have X impact on carbon emissions as well. So that we're going to see, I guess maybe we'll have a chance to know what some might say are all the costs of what we're building. But it still remains a planning document that puts these things forward. We just get to, as council and as a community, see more information about each. Do you see it close to that way? Have I got that about right?
I believe so, and I guess I'd also point out, just as a reminder, that the TSP at face value has requirements for monitoring and reporting and et cetera. So what we're talking about is a additional form of that.
The only thing I would add to that is that not only the cost, but the benefits. And some of the, when we did that for the scenario planning at MPC at the regional level, what we found out was that there were a lot of co-benefits associated with meeting the climate goals, and which are actually more significant to most people at a regular level. So things like reducing the amount of operating costs on your vehicle over a year by a substantial amount, reducing your amount of congestion that you're just wasting in time, wasting time sitting in congestion, and increasing the amount of public health to the tune of like $25 million a year in increased public health because of the plan getting. So those co-benefits also get incorporated into it. And so the other thing about the TSP is that it's a planning document, but it's not really an implementation plan. It has the projects that we would implement over the next 20 years, but it doesn't have a prioritization of those projects. And what this would do is take both the two goals that we've adopted, the climate recovery ordinance goals and the Vision Zero goal, and the specifics coming out of the work plan, and overlaying that onto that larger 20-year plan and saying, okay, within the 20 years we're going to do all this stuff, but to meet the CRO goals and the Vision Zero goals, we need to do them like this. And usually when these kinds of plans are put together, and I kind of do this for a living, is that you have a short-term, near-term, and long-term plan. The short-term stuff picks up all of the low-hanging fruit and gets all the stuff done that will be no-brainers and good bang for the buck and really cost-effective things to do to achieve your goals.
Councilor Clark?
I'm done. No,
You're done?
No.
You're done? Well, I want to vote, but we're missing one councilor. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is the price we pay for a very long meeting.
Long meeting.
One of the things that we will do is, as we look through this and try to figure out scoping what it actually means, and we come back to the council sometime in the fall and have a conversation, there may be pieces that we'll want to adjust on this, just based on we'll know better what it means, and then we can come back and go through the ordinance changing process in order to do that.
Right. Okay. I'm on hold.
He left his stuff here, so he didn't leave.
I know he has left us permanently. Thank you.
Councilor Semple has her hand.
Oh, yes.
How do we decide? Who gets to decide what the implementation plan really means? Because, I mean, I think we need an implementation plan, but I just find it a little bit vague. And so if we pass it, then what happens tomorrow? And if it's an ordinance and you have to do it lickety-split, how many things is it going to change? And who decides what it really means? To me, are we really going to go through it all and look at gases for every single one? And do you just know from this resolution what to do?
Well, I think that's where we'd have to go back and spend more time trying to understand what this actually does. What I understand the intent is that, as Alan talked about, here's all the actions that can be taken in the TSP. Decide essentially the CRO and the Vision Zero implications for each one of those, and then prioritize those in a way in which the achievement of the CRO and Vision Zero are the highest priority coming out of the TSP. And so I think that's the general intent. Now, I don't know what that actually looks like or how much work is involved in that, and that's what I think we're going to have to come back and say, June 30th, heck, we can do it in a month, or it may be, it's going to take June 30th of 2019 or whatever that is, and I think that's and get confirmation on what the intent is at that point, too, as we understand it.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Zelenka and Councilor Clark.
Where this comes out of is least cost planning. And least cost planning was invented by electric utilities. They had a myriad of different options to them. They wanted to get the least cost way to serve electricity, and that's where conservation and renewables came into play. They were the most cost-effective things to do first, and so what they did was create a plan that says do this in this order, and so they've been doing that for 30 years. And then the water industry has been doing it for 5 or 10 years, and now kind of the last big chunk of this is the transportation sector to get into the least cost planning world, and they've just been slow to take it up. And this kind of pushes the envelope. That's what Metro's already been doing, and that's what the whole scenario planning is all about, is trying to move transportation into the least cost planning mode to get you to how do you achieve the goals and what's the best way to get there.
Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager, you just said something that causes me pause, because I want to vote for this. It does what at least as I understand it, what I have said consistently, which is if we're going to have CRO, then let's figure out how we actually use it, live with it, and implement it in real time. But what I wouldn't have said is let's now prioritize CRO goals above everything else, including safety. No. And I just want to make sure, because that's a little bit of hyperbole. It's a little bit excessive in what I just said. But I did hear you say something that talks about reprioritizing, and I want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding.
That's why I think we will have to ensure the intent. When I read an amendment to the TSP that creates an implementation plan that will achieve the CRO and Vision Zero adopted goals, so what I think that is a plan to implement the TSP to achieve those two goals. Now, there may be other goals within the TSP, but those two then are the ones that are called out by ordinance to achieve. So that's why I take that as the intent. If that's not the intent, then we'll want to eventually come back and have that conversation as we move forward. But that's how I read it. So that's
I would not want to vote on this today. If that is the actual intent of the maker of the motion, then I have some challenges and need to talk about it further before I'm ready to vote in favor of it. But sorry. I believe those to be critical pieces, but I wouldn't want them, I would want to have a much deeper conversation about how to prioritize other goals that we have within the TSP. For example, safety, Beltline, and Delta, for example, is one of the most dangerous intersections in the entire state. I wouldn't want us to now subject fixing that danger to a different set of priorities from, I would want safety to remain as the higher priority there in addressing that very dangerous problem. And so while these are important goals, I want to take them in the appropriate context. So if this is direction to now suddenly change those to the most important goals, then I have pause. So can you help me understand your intent?
I think the intent is what you said, and that's the goal of Vision Zero, is to create safety and to create zero deaths and injuries on the transportation system. And so that, it doesn't say CRO and then Vision Zero. It says CRO and Vision Zero. So part of the plan will be figuring out how do you incorporate these two things together, and there's plans that achieve multiple goals is nothing new. That's been around for 50 years and successfully done. This is a balancing act. And in the end, the plan comes back to us for us to have a conversation about how that ends up looking in the end, after they've done the analysis and created the plan.
Okay.
So it does absolutely have, that's why it's a Vision Zero and CRO goals, not one or the other, or one first, the second one, and the next one second.
Councilor Surratt.
So recognizing that this amendment is an ordinance and has the force of law, I do wonder about the phrasing that says creates an implementation plan that will achieve the CRO ordinance adopted goals. because we're going to need to do more than just our TSP to get to those goals. So I wonder if you would accept amendment to that would say that will achieve the climate recovery goals as they relate to the TSP and Vision Zero adopted goals.
As they relate to the transportation sector.
Yes, as they relate to the transportation
that was the
sector.
intent. It's not, the entire climate recovery ordinance isn't going to be handled by just the transportation sector, but it is the biggest one by far, 30 to 40%.
So you'd accept that?
Yes,
okay.
as a friendly.
Second, who's the second?
I was.
Are you the second?
The old David Kelly trick.
Okay, perfect. Oh, that's a trick. Okay, and then Councilor Taylor?
Just a question, what is more important than saving the planet? That's all.
Eddie,
All right.
give it to you.
Are we now ready to vote on this amendment as amended? I mean, this motion as amended? With the friendly amendment. Do we know what we're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
I know.
All right, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councilor Evans?
Still there?
Councilor Evans?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yes.
I vote yes.
Yes, all right. Thank you. All right.
I can't work my phone, okay?
It's all right. It's again, it probably gets slower as the night goes on. Okay. All right. So now, Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to make this motion real quick. If I get a second, I'll speak to it.
Excuse me, Councilor Clark, before you do that, are you intending this to be part of the ordinance or
No,
not?
sir,
No, wait,
sorry.
we got to go to the
I
main
thought we had
motion.
finished
Thank
that part. I'm
So
incorrect.
you voted
That's right.
on the
Thank you.
amendment, now you need to vote on the TS.
Right.
Okay. So now we vote on the main motion
As amended.
as amended.
It's 10 o'clock. I'm getting a little.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councilor Evans?
Aye.
7, it passes. Okay, done with that. All right. Okay, now, Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. Move to direct city manager as follows. Before January 31st of 2018, the manager will create a strategy to incorporate new and emerging transportation technologies into the TSP and will present a timeline for the initiation of an amendment to the TSP. The strategy will at least include and describe A, 50% electric vehicles by 2030 and 90%, EVs by 2050, and B, autonomous vehicles. Note autonomous vehicle section to include, number 1, an analysis and summary of city policies that apply to autonomous vehicles. 2, staff recommended policy changes or new policies to support autonomous vehicle implementation that meets city goals of safety, compact growth, and low carbon transportation. And 3, evaluation of anticipated impacts of autonomous vehicles on transportation infrastructure, including signals, roads, and parking capacity. The technology strategy should identify any other potentially transformative technologies expected within the next 10 years. For any technologies determined unsuitable for Eugene, provide an explanation and why.
Second.
Thank you. I first want to say thank you to both Matt McCrae and to Catherine for helping me with the language here. This has got a lot of pieces to it, but the essence of the point of this is technology is moving faster than the decision making in many fields, but certainly in transportation. I think part of why we ended up with kind of some challenges around the issues we deal with Uber and Lyft is because the technology leaped ahead of where the policy was on that and was available long before we had addressed it with policy considerations that might have made that incorporate differently in our community as it has in others. I want to make sure that we are leading when this technology is coming at us so quickly and that we're prepared, that we've studied, we understand the impacts as technology develops on our system, and the staff has the capacity, because they've been studying and been understanding it, to direct us when the appropriate decision-making times arrive on how best to incorporate those things. So that's my intention for creating this.
Okay, any discussion? We have a second. Are we ready to vote on this motion? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll support this. I think it's a very good idea. These are coming faster than we thought, and probably going to accelerate in terms of their adoption. And so getting ahead of the 8 ball, I think, is a good idea. If I understand this right, it's really about thinking about this, strategizing about it, figuring out what we'd need to change in order to accommodate more EVs, more autonomous vehicles, and other kinds of technologies that are going to be moving fast.
Portland is doing the same thing, and there's an awful lot of money being invested by an awful lot of very serious people. So the ability, this will be on the street in Portland very soon, and it will get to us soon as well. So we might as well be ready with an understanding of how to adapt appropriately.
Right. The last round of expectations about time frame was 20 years. Then recently it was 10 years, and then most recently I heard an interview with the GM folks, and they said 5 years, which means it's probably moving faster than that.
Okay. Okay. All in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councilor Evans?
Aye.
7, and it passes. Thank you very much. Okay. We are finished with that.
Danny's still here,
Do I
right?
have
Where's
to
Danny?
gavel out of this? Do I have to gavel out of this? No, I don't, because we still have
One more item.
we have work session item.
Ah, here we go.
Okay.
We're going
Reader's Digest version.
Really fast. So I had a PowerPoint prepared, but I'll do the shortened version of it. Especially, I think a lot of you already know what we're discussing.
Yes.
So this is about the e-commerce zone, which is an overlay to the enterprise zone. E-commerce businesses are those that engage in transactions via the internet. The key difference for the e-commerce zone is that businesses can get a state income tax credit against their income tax liability or corporate excise tax liability. So these businesses still need to meet the requirements of the enterprise zone, which means they need to increase their workforce by at least 10%. The state income tax credit is equal to 25% of their investment. The maximum credit is $2 million per year, and unused credit can be carried over for 5 years. We previously had an e-commerce zone. It expired when the enterprise zone expired last year. We were unsuccessful in redesignation because of the state's process. And so I'm going to explain why we're having today's work session and then also the phone call vote next week. So the process for getting the e-commerce zone is competitive. There's only 15 in the state. This year there's only going to be 2 available, and there's 69 total enterprise zones in the state. In order to get the overlay, we have to inform the state of our interest on or after July 1, and then if more than one enterprise zone declares their interest on the same day, the tiebreaker awards the designation to the zone that has an earlier date of adopting the resolution. So last year we adopted the resolution too late. So today we'll do a straw poll vote, and then next Monday we'll have the actual action on the resolution.
Okay. Let's see, we could put the motion out and discuss it, I suppose. Or you want to?
I move to approve moving forward with the e-commerce resolution and directing city manager to schedule a phone meeting for July 3rd, Monday, during which the city council will officially vote on the e-commerce resolution.
Second.
Any discussion of this? Thoughts, concerns? Okay. All in.
Do we have a time?
We don't have a time for that phone call.
At the 10 a.m.
Oh, 10 a.m. We do have a time. Okay. You said that.
On July 3rd, it'll just be bad.
July 3rd.
Bad time.
It's
not 8.
Okay. All right. All in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Councilor Evans?
Aye.
6, 7.
Oh, she's.
I was opposed.
So there are no vote. Okay, 6 in favor, 1 opposed. It passes. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being great. Thank you, Amanda. Stand up.
Thanks, Amanda.
Are we adjourned, Mayor?
We're adjourned. Oh.
All right.